I really strongly believe in our smudging because we should go back to our connections to our Indian culture because we were disconnected from residential school. And when I do smudge, I always feel very connected to my ancestors, and I always call on the Creator to help me with prayers, to hear my prayers, and also wipe away all the negativeness. And our smudging is very powerful. Prayers are very powerful, and that is so important.
Through the Strong Women's Circle work, we involved Indigenous researchers that selected 6 topics that government was in control of and could actively make change to stop violence for Indigenous people through a primary prevention approach. The 6 areas included education, transportation, child welfare, housing, the legal system, and health. Throughout the project, we held 7 virtual circles that provided time and space that supported the elders to provide their stories, their voices, to create the social change that they were creating in their own communities. These stories of hope provided examples of what is working and how promising practices could be replicated more broadly throughout Turtle Island. It was important to hear and feature Indigenous female voices because often they're working within systems that prohibit their ability to change, yet we know so many of them are leading and doing the change that is needed. The purpose of this project was not just to focus on the problems. While those are really important, it was really focused on solutions and problem solving and showcasing the work that the elders and knowledge keepers are actually already doing in their communities and across the globe. And our role at the university was to provide space and time and opportunity to bring that information together, and really that's our responsibility as social workers. Building our understanding of what allyship is and how we can take action is the future, and the Strong Women's Circle is paving the way.
There's no one problem. So everything overlaps. If it's mental health, there's usually addictions. If there's domestic violence, there's usually poverty. But it all comes down to that colonialism and that patriarchal system that we have set out before us. So to be able to get at the root problem, we actually need to be able to deconstruct that and start making up systems that are favorable for Indigenous people.
Thinking about domestic violence, and to me domestic violence is about empowerment. I lived through that experience, but I got to the other side with my husband. It was a learning time where I started to study my own language, and for me that was reclaiming my identity as a Dene person. I was able to take back, my own power within my relationship with my husband. And I always hoped that that would be a model for my own daughters, especially my sons. My focus has been on working for children, youth, and families and advocating for them, being the voice that they don't have. And I think that's a really key concept. It's part of what colonialism did, was to take away our voice in more ways than one. It's extremely challenging, but yet It's so important because it's our children. Because I've been involved in that work with children's services, I've seen how very cruel the system is.
Dismantling colonialism is something we are working on currently. And that's one step at a time, educating people to the history, learning the true history of this country. They don't address the issues of the Indigenous community enough, and that has to be really brought out into the open.
I started working inside the prison system. I had never been inside of a prison in my life prior to that. So it was a huge learning curve that I went through. Since I was starting inside, they started to realize that it would be helpful to have elders such as myself go in and sit and teach and counsel and talk and, big word, listen to the inmates. And the more I learned about what their journeys were like, the more I shook my head and realized that, you know, this system's not functioning really for anybody involved.
Right from the get-go as a child, you know, you were brought up in what we call a very, very strong foundation with my parents and my grandmother. There was no such a thing as violence until the government decided to take us away at such a young age. And I got so scared and I asked, what is going on? But my dad said, when they take the land away and the children away, there's nothing for me to live for except drinking and drinking. Because I have nothing. I have no family. Government took you guys away from me. That's when I learned violence. Part of it is the language, and the language is where the knowledge is and the teachings. It's in the language. Language is directly related to parenting, and so when that was taken away from us, it literally just crushed the people. Parenting has been lost over the millennia because of all what we've gone through, like the residential era. That whole group of parents, they didn't have no parenting because they were in school, so their skills to parent is not there. So they're guessing and they're saying, well, maybe this is parenting, you know, or maybe they don't show any affection towards their children. And so it's very hard.
When a child comes into care, there's very strict rules on why that child can come into care. So when that happens and that family has only got, 6 months while their child's under a temporary guardianship order, and then it gets extended for another 6 months, that's a year. Imagine working through all those issues only within a year. Now, if you go past that year, your child could become under a permanent guardianship order. That's serious. That may mean your child could be adopted out. It could go for private guardianship. Families do not heal. That's another form of trauma. That's another form of trauma that creates more domestic violence.
Having the understanding that I do about child development, what does a child need most? A child needs attachment, safety, and yet there's involvement with children's service. And then they take the children. I don't care what the issues are in the family. The answer is not taking the children away. That is never the solution to what's going on. If I could have a magic wand today, and if I could zap that and no more children being removed, I think that would be a big step forward. Because what they really need is they need supports. They need healing. As soon as they take their children, everything goes crumbling. They lose their home, they lose their income. At the same time, they're told, oh, you gotta have a home and you gotta have this. It doesn't even make sense. They're so broken from having lost their children, having lost everything it is that you need hope for. It's wrong.
How people, our Indigenous people, are treated here with housing in Calgary. You know, you have too many red tapes. You know, for myself, even to go and put in an application, I need to do this. No, that's not us. So we gotta work together in housing. You tell me that if I go into a senior, I cannot have any flowers at all outside. That's part of me making my home nice. That's who I am. But to be forbidden by you, it prevents me from going into a senior place. And that's why for myself and many other elders that are in Calgary also, they do not want to go into Calgary housing. Either you go by their rules or work that extra job and stuff so you can afford not going into the Calgary housing.
Different acts of violence, it also includes when a government decides that, we're not gonna fund that low-cost housing anymore. That's indirectly, but it's directly. Because what happens is that the woman who's leaving when they got the kids, where are they gonna go for low-cost housing? How are they gonna do that? How are they gonna function?
And we're being dismissed as if we have no knowledge, as if we have no credibility to make, these assessments of what we're talking about. You tell me how to change a system that is definitely not under the decision making of Indigenous people. It's being forced upon our people.
Education, educate themselves, and really listen, look, and learn from the Indigenous people, because we have a lot of wisdom to share. We have our lived experiences to share. It has to be a two-way dialogue, not just listen, but actively participate. And so to me, that's one of the starting points. It's time. We have a lot to share, and our teachings have been there since time immemorial. And look at what we have survived. I always say to people, I've survived genocide, and I can stand in my essence in love and kindness with non-Indigenous alike. You have to be willing to step out of your comfort zones.
We've lost language, we've lost culture. There's been a genocide on our culture, a genocide on our people. Are people ready to hear First Nations, Métis, and Inuit? Are people really ready to say, here I am, I'm going to be a partner with you, and I'm going to start by listening to you and letting the people of the nations build the new system, because that's where the solution is. People always want to know how to be an ally. Well, it starts out by listening. It starts out by giving up the control. And that's not easy. Our people know the solutions for what they need. The moment people recognize that, that's the moment they become the ally. That's the moment when relationships can start to be built.
To build that relationship together, come into our community, come to our powwows, Come and learn about us. I want to learn about you too. Like, where did you come from? This is what I do, and what do you do? You know, how do you handle this? How do you handle the violence in your community? Because I can tell you how to handle the violence in our community. We can work on reconciling together, you and I, because I know about you now. You know about me now. You know, we build that strong friendship together, and now let's work together in this community.
We're all going through a huge social shift. I think there's a lot of people out there that are starting or want to try to open their minds to new things, new ideas, new ways of perception, but there's a lot of fear, and it's holding a lot of people back. We can make the shifts that are required. If everybody can just contribute one little tiny pinch, I think then we would, all of us, be able to see the elastic stretch just a titch. Have the courage, you know, to challenge ourselves or to ask a question. There's another one, ask. Why? Because answers serve knowledge, and knowledge serves all of us.
In my 86 years of life, I have seen a lot of positive changes. I'm happy about that. It makes my heart happy, but we still have a long ways to go. It's like going through the dance of life. You take 2 steps forward, 3 sideways, 1 back, and that's really what's happening. I would like to see more changes, and the government has to make changes. Those changes, legislation has to start up at the top and work down. Because this is my truth, and I'm still currently ensuring that my voice is there in the community for the people. Because the elders always said, you're talking for the past, the present, and the future generations to come.
So this Strong Women's Circle that I've been blessed to be a part of, it was lovely because they all are strong women. And it was such a joy to be able to sit in a group of women that have their own internal strengths and confidences and skill sets that are quite varied amongst us, to be able to share all of our strengths, our ideas, our stories, because it got each one of us thinking. Each one of those women that I sat with are all on a mission, and it's just so beautiful to see.
Those women, those grandmothers are leading that change. And so we have those circles, they do have some impact. They do.
They're an amazing group of elders, and these women do the walk and the talk, and they're role models. And the knowledge that came from the group, it just was an amazing pride for me. And it was interesting because now, as a Métis person, we're moving into the new constitution, into our new government. And as I was rereading our work last night, I was thinking, here are the stepping stones that the Métis Nation is actually taken. It's like they literally read our book and they're following what we recommended, listening to the community, and then making a model that will make a difference when it comes to domestic violence.
In our language, we have this word, it's called gumasite. That means you have to try hard. And that was my mom's, no matter what we tell her, she always told us that. Right now, all of you, I'm telling you as women, you have to try hard. No matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, no matter how impossible it looks, you have to try hard.
I think us women, the Strong Circle women, each and every one of us has a bit of a responsibility to stand strong and to not waver. We know we need to be strong and to stand in that truth. And that's what it's about. I'm here to learn. I wanna be part of the change.